Chapter 15. She read about the restaurant in the Daily News and left the clippings by his side of the bed so he wouldn't miss it. It had been a while since they had a night out together, 3 months on. His secretary Yvette still left the office early to care for her mother, which had been playing catch-up at the end of every day. Her mother was senile, but they called it dementia now. As for Millie, it had almost March, so the annual madness had descended. April 15 coming up, and everybody scrambling. They got a level of denial that it positively insane, his wife said. She usually got home in time for the 11 o'clock news. He canceled date night twice already. Date night was some women's magazine thing, now embedded in his vocabulary like a splinter. So Millie was not going to let him miss this one. Dorothy had been twice, as same as Maisie, Millie said. Dorothy thought a lot of things were amazing, like gospel brunch, American Idol, and organizing a petition against the new mosque opening up. He held his tongue. He left at 7 after taking a crack at decoding the new health plan Yvette had dug up for Ace. It was cheaper, but he was getting ripped off the long run for the co-pay bullshit. This species of paperwork had always confounded and vexed. He had Yvette explain it again when she got in the next day. He got off at the City College, stopped on Broadway, and peeled off the hill. It was warmer than it was supposed to be for March, but he remembered more than one April blizzard in Manhattan. Wasn't ready to call it spring yet. It happens right after you put your coat away, he said. Millie told him he sounded like some batty hermit who lived in a cave. Camille's was on the corner of 141st in Amsterdam, the anchor retail of a 7-story tenement. The Daily News Review described the place as novel Southern, down-home place with a twist. What was the twist? That it was sour food made by white people? Chitlins with some pale pickle thing on top? A neon Lone Star beer sign blinked in the window, and a halo of battered Alabama license plates, surrounded by the menu by the entrance. He squinted. His eyes weren't what they used to be. Despite the hilly-billy warning signs, the food sounded good and not too fussed over. When he got to the hostess station, most of the patrons side were neighborhood people, black people, Latinos, who probably worked in the area for the college, squares, but their presence vouched. The hostess was a white girl in a light blue hippie dress, one of that clan. Chinese character tattoos scrolled up her wiry arms. Who knew what they said? She pretended not to see him, and he started off around racism or bad service. He didn't get far into the calculation before she apologized for the wait. The new system was down, she said, frowning at the gray glow on her stand. Would you like to sit now or wait for the rest of your party? Years of habit made him say he waited outside, and then on the sidewalk came that too familiar disappointment. Millie had made him quit. He pushed a tablet of nicotine gum out of the foil. A warm late winter evening. He didn't think that he'd be on this block before. Up on 142nd, he recognized the building from an old job, back when he was still in the truck. He still felt the old days in his back sometimes, a twinge and a quiver. This was Hamilton Heights now. The first time one of his dispatchers asked where Hamilton Heights was, he said, "Tell them they're moving to Harlem." But the name persisted and stuck. Real estate agents cooking up the new names for old places, or resurrecting old names for old places. Then the neighborhood was turning over. That young people, white people were moving back. He can cover office rent and payroll. You want to pay him to move you into Hamilton Heights or Lower Whoville or whatever they come up with. He happy to help. 3-hour minimum. White flight in reverse. The children and grandchildren of those who fled the island years before, fled the riots and bankruptcy government and the graffiti that spelled out, "Go fuck yourself," no matter what the letter said. The city was such a dump when he arrived. He didn't blame them. The racism and fear and disappointment paid for his new life. You want to pay to move to Roslyn Long Island? Horizons gladly help. And if he was getting the hourly wage back then, not paying the hourly wage, he was grateful that Mr. Betts paid on time and cash off the books. Didn't matter what his name was or where he come from. A West Side spirit stuck out of the garbage can on the corner, and he made a note to tell Millie that he wasn't doing the interview, when they were going to bed or tomorrow, so as not to spoil the evening. A woman in her book club sold ads for the newspaper and told Millie she put his name up for a feature that they were running, spotlighting local businesses, enterprising entrepreneurs. He was a natural, a black man who owned his own moving company, employed local people, mentoring. I don't mentor anybody, he told Millie. He was in the kitchen tying a garbage bag in a knot. It's big honor. I'm not one of these people who needs everybody's attention, he said. It was simple, a quick interview, and they send a photographer to take some pictures of his new office on 125th Street. Maybe one of him standing in front of the trucks, the big boss, to put it all in perspective. Out of question, he'd be nice about it, place an ad or two, and that'd be the end. Millie was 5 minutes late, unusual for her. It bugged him. He stepped back some more, so he saw the building proper and realized he had been here before, back in the 70s. The restaurant had been a community center, or the like legal aid, a view of the desk so you can see that everybody looks like you. Help you fill out the application for food stamps and other government programs. Break down the discouraging bureaucracies, probably run by some former Panthers. He was still working for Horizon, so it'd be the 70s. Top floor, middle of the summer, and the elevator was out, humping up all that white and black hexagon tile. The steps worn from so many feet they seemed to smile. A dozen smiles every floor. Right. The old lady had died. The son hired them to pack everything, take it to his house on Long Island, where they bring it to the basement, shove it up cozy between the boiler and the never-touched fishing rods, where it would remain until the son died and his children didn't know what to do with it. And it started all over again. The family packed up half the old lady's stuff and then given up. You gotta understand the silence when people got overwhelmed by the enormity of the undertaking. There were still a bunch of images from the afternoon in his memory, up and down the tenement floor, the sweat soaked into their Horizon t-shirts, the jammed shut windows that corralled the musty smell of isolation and death, the empty cupboards, the bed she died in, stripped to the blue and white striped mattress, and her stains. Are we taking the mattress? We are not taking the mattress. Lord knows he had a fear in those days of dying like that. No one knows until the stink alarms, the neighbors, and the irritated super lets the cops in. Irritated until he sees the body, and then after that it's all pieced together. Biography. He let the mail pile up. One time he cursed out the nice lady next door and vowed to poison her cats. Died alone in one of his old rooms, and what's the last thing he thinks of before he kicks a bucket? Nickel. Nickel hunting him to his final moment. A vessel in his brain explodes, or his heart flops in his chest, and then beyond too. Perhaps Nickel was the very afterlife that awaited him, with the White House down the hill and an eternity of oatmeal, and the infinite brotherhood of broken boys. He hadn't thought about going out like that in years. He packed it up in a box and put it in his basement next to the boiler and the neglected fishing gear, with the rest of the stuff from the old days. He stopped embroidering the fantasy long ago, not because he had someone in his life, but because that someone was Millie. She chipped off the bad parts. He hoped he did the same. He got a feeling he wanted to buy her flowers, like when he started taking her out. 8 years since, he saw her at the Hale House fundraiser, filing out her raffle tickets and her careful script. Is that what normal husbands do, buy flowers for no reason? All these years out of the school, and he still spent a segment of his days trying to decipher the customs of normal people. The ones who had raised happily 3 meals a day and a kiss goodnight. The ones who had no notion of White Houses, Love's Lanes, and white county judges who sentenced you to hell. She was late. If he hurried, he could make it to Broadway and buy a cheap bouquet at a Korean deli before she got here. What's this for, she'll ask, for being the whole free world. He should have thought of flowers sooner, as at the deli outside the office, or when he stepped out in the subway, because right then she said, "There's my handsome husband," and it was a date night.